kind of given up. I lost everything. I don't even have a collar to wear to church. And that's what I heard. And I said, so that's it? If you had a collared shirt, you'd go to church? And then he just kind of went silent. That was about it. So I said, okay, Gary. I prayed with him. Every day we were in New Orleans, I got to have these great conversations with Gary. So many deep stories I could share with you guys. But Gary was just so introverted and so in his world. He didn't want anything to do with the outside world. Like he just completely shut everything out because he thought that he was protecting himself from harm, when in actuality, by indrawing into himself and causing himself isolation, he was actually harming himself more and more. And so every day we showed up to the job site. Every day we prayed with Gary. And every day Gary would come out and kind of say hi and then kind of peek back in. He's kind of one of those hermit crabs, that kind of come out and come back in. And every now and then he would walk the house just to see what was going on. And then finally, on a Thursday, I was telling the students about this story that we were with, and the students had this amazing reaction. They had a staggering overreaction to grace. They said, you know what? If all it's going to take to get Gary and Jesus together is a collared shirt, let's do something about that. And so we worked that day, and then that night we went back to the place that we were staying, and they took their travel money and they took an offering amongst themselves. $200 later, they came to me and they said, Stephen, we're going to Walmart before we show up at the gas station, or before we show up at Gary's house tomorrow. I was like, okay, why? And they said, well, what we've done is we've pulled together enough money to get Gary a collared shirt so that he can feel nice and that he would go to church and encounter Christ again. And so I said, that is awesome. And they said, in addition to that, we also want to buy a picture frame. Take a picture of all of us, sign it, and then just give it to him so he can do whatever he wants with it. I thought, that is awesome. So they all went to Walmart. We drove in. They got their money. They got Gary, I think $200, but that's a lot at Walmart. And so they got him like a couple shirts, some undershirts, a tie. They got him just this awesome, this bag of grace. And so we got back to the job site. We worked all day, and then at the end in the afternoon, we called Gary out, and we had this beautiful time together. And Gary walked out into this home, and you could tell he was kind of shy. And the students gave him the collared shirt and the tie. And you could see Gary's face when he took that bag. His face went white. Like right before somebody's about to cry really hard. They're like, and then it comes out. Like Gary did that. He's like, and then he turned around and he ran, grabbed the bag and he ran back to his trailer. He didn't want anybody to see him cry. And so, I just kind of went out to his trailer and see if he was okay. And it turns out, because we didn't want to give him a heart attack or nothing, and so Gary was just so moved by the gesture, that he said, he looked at me and he said that there's no reason why I can't go back to church. There's no reason why I can't have a relationship with Christ. And it was because of a staggering overreaction to God's grace, right? Once you realize how much that you've been forgiven, you want to show people that. You want to be a part of introducing people to that forgiveness. We have this great responsibility to show people the grace of God. But most of us in our faith end up looking like this. If you go to the next one here. And I love this quote by Max Lucado. It says, we fear saying the wrong thing or using the wrong tone or acting the wrong way. So rather than do it incorrectly, we just do nothing at all. Right? You ever felt like that before? I felt like that before. Where I'm just like, you know what, God, I know you, but I might not tell people the right thing about you. Or I might not say the right thing, or I may not have the right answer. So you know what? I'm not gonna even talk about it. I'm just gonna do nothing at all. I'm just gonna sit in thankfulness and just keep it all right here. Right? I'm just gonna do nothing about it. But that is not the gospel that we've been called to. We've been called as Christians to live a story, a missional story with vision and purpose and fire and passion. And we have opportunity every day to show people the grace of God, because we are who we are by the grace of God. And that grace has not gone without effect. Now I want to introduce you to something real quick. If you go to the next slide, there's a definition of this word intercession. How many of you guys know what intercession means? Intercession. Yes, adults, they all raising their hands. Intercession. Intercession is the act of interceding, which doesn't help at all in the process of learning. But it means to do this, to intervene between parties with the view of reconciling differences. To intervene between two parties with the view of reconciling differences. We, as believers, have an opportunity to intervene, to intercede on other people's behalf. Those students in Louisiana did that. They interceded on Gary's behalf so that Gary could be reintroduced to Jesus Christ and receive the ultimate salvation and the ultimate extravagant love from Jesus. Now, once we do this, it means to act on purpose with specific intention. An intercession is not like, whoops, that naturally came up, right? An intercession is to act on purpose, purposefully, with the intention of reconciling the differences. Now, it also suggests intercession. Intercession takes on a role that what the person being interceded on can't do themselves. So it's something that you have ability to do that the other person can't do for themselves. Does that make sense? You guys tracking? Okay. So to intercede is to do something for someone else that they wouldn't have otherwise been able to do for themselves. 2 Corinthians, Paul puts it like this in 2 Corinthians, if you go to the next slide. He says, all of this is a gift from God who brought us back to himself through Christ. And God has given us this task of reconciling people to him. For God was in Christ, reconciling the world to himself, no longer counting people's sins against them. And he gave us this wonderful message of reconciliation, so we are Christ's ambassadors. God is making his appeal through us. We speak for Christ when we plead, come back to God. For God made Christ, who never sinned, to be the offering for our sin, so that we could be made right with God through Christ. And that's a lot of words for a very simple thought. And here it comes. All of this, all of your life is a gift from God. All of your life is a gift from God. It is by his grace you are what you are. And it is by his grace I am what I am. And it is God who brought us back to himself through Jesus, who was our intercessor. Jesus did something for us that we couldn't have done for ourselves. So in response to that, we do for others what they can't do for themselves. We love them extravagantly. Our lives become a staggering overreaction to grace. C.S. Lewis says this, if you go to the next one. He says, the measure of a life is not its duration, it's its donation. What are you doing with your life? What are you a part of? That's eternal. That's God's story. In 2010, in January of 2010, Haiti was struck with this incredible earthquake. Buildings fell. Port-au-Prince was just in rubbles. All of the migration of Haiti's people who came down into that city were now going back to their small villages. And there was this overpopulace of the small villages surrounding Port-au-Prince, Haiti. And in this overpopulation, crime was starting to be abundant. And what I said to my students in January of 2010 was, let's do something. What are we sitting here for? You understand? I mean, I was like, this is crazy. They just had an earthquake. Let's do something. And so we got together a group of 20 high school and college students, and I called up this organization in Northwest Haiti. I said, hey, you guys got a room? Can we come out? Can we help? Can we do stuff? They're like, come on out. And so we got together. We flew on out in June of 2010. So we were there 6 months after the earthquake. Now, at that point, the migration had finished. Lots of people were back overpopulating the small villages that they were from, and there was not enough food, there was not enough police, there was not enough whatever. And the police system down there is totally corrupt. If you go to the next slide, you'll see this is a picture of two pictures of me in Haiti, and then also in the top right, that's the picture of a Haitian jail. Now, our second day in Haiti, the person who was owning the particular mission in Haiti asked if we wanted to go down to the jail to pray for the prisoners who were in jail, because it's not innocent until proven guilty, it's guilty until proven innocent. And you may spend years in jail without even a trial to prove your innocence, and there's not like 3 hots and a cot every day. You don't get meals every day, you're not sleeping well every day. And so you only eat what people are able to bring you, and there's really no beds in these particular areas, so you're sleeping on floors. Then, in addition to that, there's no juvenile system. So all the kids are thrown in with the adults, and it's only segregated by gender. And it's crazy. So we end up going to this jail in northwest Haiti. And we walk into the jail and we ask if we can pray with some of the prisoners. Now, the warden, the guards people there were totally fine with that. The organization had come down there very frequently, so this was not a new idea for them. And when we came down there, we learned of a particular story of one of the prisoners. So I walked inside. I took my intern Lance inside with me just to kind of get everything started, to figure it out. And we looked inside and we saw this 12-year-old boy, which you can't see in this picture, but we saw a 12-year-old boy amongst 8 grown Haitian adults. Men. Scary men. Now imagine you being 12. Some of you, not far ago. Some of you now. But imagine being 12 years old, locked in a cell, day and night, with grown men. That is scary. They could take from you whatever they wanted. And this little boy had this look of fear on his face. And I still remember him looking at me through those cell bars. He couldn't speak a lick of English. But I asked the guard, I said, why is this little boy in jail? And the guard told me that he was watching another family's pigs. One of the pigs had got stolen. And it had nothing to do with him, but the owner of the pigs decided to put him in jail, thinking that he had organized the stealing of one of his pigs. And so he was thrown in jail. No family, no blankets, no food, just fear. Innocent until proven guilty. And he had been in that cell, what I found out, for the upwards of 3.5 weeks. Just fearful for his life. And so we brought some people into the jail. We decided to pray. And we decided to pray for justice, not because we knew the story and we're like, oh, that kid's totally innocent. But we said, God, in your wisdom, will you just justify this situation? Will you make this right? Will you send your spirit? God, if you are listening to us, there is injustice happening. And we don't know the stories of all of these prisoners, but we know the story of one. You know, we want to pray for this little boy. And about 15 minutes after we had finished praying, it's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, a local Haitian judge walks into the jail, goes over to the warden, tells us to get out. We leave. We just stay outside to see what was happening. The local missionary who we were working with went back inside and just started tearing. I could see her just tearing. And she came back out and I asked her what happened. And she said, well, that little boy was just freed. He's been given his pass of freedom. And I thought, oh my gosh, prayer works, right? You know, I mean, it's just one of those times where it just happened. You're like, oh, dang, did you experience that? You know, we were just we were skipping back to the mission. I mean, it was just crazy, right? I mean, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation like that before where you've seen God work so powerfully. But it's amazing how God works when your life is a staggering overreaction to grace. Because I thought in my mind, once that earthquake happened, that I wanted to be there to help someone or that family so that they could be introduced to Jesus. I didn't know how God was going to use me. I didn't know how God was going to use us. But you know what? God chose to use imperfect people in His grace for the freedom of that little boy. Now, a lot of that was orchestrated before we got there. I realized that. But God still answered our prayer.